Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to talk about geomorphic processes. This indeed is a very important topic, very important aspect of geography जिससे directly ही नहीं indirectly भी questions आते हैं, right? So this should be crystal clear to you concept wise and fact wise. ठीक है? So we'll start with it. Before that, let me just tell you about this program wherein we will revise entire prelim syllabus through 3000 plus MCQs. We have already done 400 MCQs in polity, 400 in economy, 400 in modern history. Now we're doing geography, then we'll do environment, art and culture, ancient medieval, science and tech. All of that we will do. And current affairs also. And what benefit you will have if you get the courses, that you can attempt these questions beforehand. And if you are not clear with the explanation of the questions, if you want more clarity on it, then you come to the videos. This will save massive amount of your time. So you can contact on this number and visit this website for this. Okay, chalo, let's start with the very first question. Consider the following pairs: fold mountains, orogenetic force; continent building, eustatic force; sea level rise, radial force; balancing of landforms, isostatic force. How many of the above pairs are correct? Can appear to be a heavy question, but it is just a factual and conceptual both question. Fold mountains, for example, Himalayas. Himalayas are young fold mountains because this was the Indo-Australian plate. This was the Eurasian plate. Indo-Australian plate came and collided with it and the mountain started rising. So this became a fold mountain. And mountain building process like this is called orogenetic force. So first is absolutely correct. What is orogeny? It is the mountain building process. If you have read climatology, you would know that the rainfall that we get from southwest monsoon is called orogenetic rainfall. Orogenetic rainfall. Why? Because that rainfall emerges from collision of the rain-bearing clouds with the mountains. So orogenetic, it is all about mountain building processes. Then continent building process को हम eustatic force नहीं बोलते हैं. Continent building process को हम बोलते हैं epirogenic. This is not orogenetic, this is orogenic actually. ठीक है? Orogenic and epirogenic. तो epirogenic जो है वो आपका continent building forces है. Fine. तो eustatic नहीं है. Now eustatic क्या है? Eustatic force जो है, that is telling us why the sea level of the world is rising. ठीक है? And this is not necessarily with respect to global warming. It is any reason why sea level might be rising overall across the world. ठीक है? So sea level rise जानने के लिए हम ये eustatic forces को स्टडी करते हैं. Out of which global warming can be one force. ठीक है? Global warming can be one force of it. So fold mountains correctly matched है, continent building correctly matched नहीं है. Then sea level rise, eustatic force है. What is radial force? Radial force is related to the process of gravity. ठीक है? The process of gravity. जैसे हम एक circle देखते हैं. When we see a circle, what is this? This is the radius, right? This is the radius. So radius and radial forces ऐसे करके याद रखना that gravity is emanating from the center of the earth, right? And radial force is studying the impact of gravity. So sea level rise is being seen by eustatic forces. Radial force is about the impact of gravity. ठीक है? तो third is also incorrectly matched. Balancing of landforms. Balancing of landforms को समझने के लिए definitely isostatic forces are needed. ठीक है? Isostatic forces को हम समझते हैं. Basically, if you see what is balancing of landforms, this is land. If the mountains would not have been like this, they could have been like this, a very tall mountain, that's it, but that would not be stable, right? That particular landform would not be stable. So these kind of isostatic forces of earth which keep the earth in equilibrium, because they are balancing the landforms. That is the isostatic forces. So fourth is correctly matched. So here 1 and 4 are correctly matched. So only 2 is the correct answer. Is that clear? You have got a lot of facts over here. And I hope कि आपको समझ में आ गया है. Fold mountain, basically mountain building, continent building, sea level rise, balancing of landforms. Orogenic, epirogenic, then eostatic, radial and isostatic. So 5 forces की हमने बात की है. Fine. You should be knowing all 5 of these. Next. Sliding of a mass of rock or soil along a curved surface in a rotational form is known as what? Slump of rocks, landslide of rocks, creeping of rocks या फिर mud flow. So आपके NCERT में there is a table, there is a diagram which is this kind of a triangular diagram जिसमें कि mass movements के बारे में बात की गई है. Mass movements. Fine. How from higher altitude, for example, if this is a hill or a mountain, from higher altitude, the mass, the rocks, etc., can slide down, can fall down in multiple ways, and those ways are also classified in multiple forms, right? Some are fast, some are slow. So if you see sliding of a mass or rock along the curved surface, this is the key, curved surface in a rotational form. So that actually is the slump. What is the slump? If this is a straight structure, slump is like this, right? It is a slump. So when something is falling down like this is a fall. When something is falling down like this, you know, this is the structure and this is how it is falling, curving again and again because of the amount of weight that the remains have. That is slump. Okay. Landslide, we are all aware of it. Landslide is the gradual movement of rocks and soil, etc., due to the force of gravity and in a straight line. ठीक है. Slump is also because of gravity, but in a straight line. ये सारे mass movements हैं. ठीक है. Then creeping. Creeping is a very slow movement. Creeping is overall a very slow movement, right? Name of a very slow movement. So creeping of rocks or soil. This happens when the soil is very heavy, right? Full of water, full of overall remains. Then mud flow. Mud is like daldal. Mud is basically very watery, and when it flows down, it is mud flow. So here I want to tell you something, that this being mass movements, a question has been asked earlier as well, that is weathering a prerequisite for mass movements? Is weathering a prerequisite for mass movements? What is weathering? Weathering is when various forces of nature like air, water, ice, animals, they keep on taking away, they keep on weathering, leveling up the surface, right? So mass movements के लिए weathering is not a prerequisite. Weathering is not a prerequisite. ठीक है? It's not a prerequisite. It aids the mass movement. A weathered surface will be easily moved downhill. But the only thing that is required for a mass movement is actually gravity. ठीक है? Gravity के flow के चलते, gravity के pull के चलते, mass movements happen. And if weathering has already happened, then it is the added advantage. Mass movement will happen. Of course, it's not an advantage because it will always lead to a lot of loss of human lives. But you know what I mean. For that movement to actually happen, weathering will aid the mass movement, but it is not a prerequisite for mass movement. Okay. So this I wanted to make clear. अब next पे चलते हैं. Answer इसका A है. Next. X is one of the weathering processes in which thermal expansion and contraction takes place. X results into flaking of rocks and sheets and is common in arid and semi-arid regions. Identify X. So these are various ways of weathering, various forms of weathering. There are physical weathering, 3 forms of weathering. फिजिकल, केमिकल, बायोलॉजिकल। ठीक है, तो अब एक एक करके देखो। व्हाट इज फ्रॉस्ट वेजिंग? फ्रॉस्ट वेजिंग इज अ टाइप ऑफ physical weathering wherein there are rocks, and because of the temperature frost gets accumulated into it, and when the temperature rises up the frost will melt down, and this pressure, this constant pressure will lead to breaking of the rock. So this is a physical process, but this happens in icy cold areas. This will not happen in arid and semi-arid regions. So first is not the correct answer. Second is actually the correct answer. Exfoliation. Have you seen how an onion is formed? Onion has various layers which are exfoliated, right? So similar to that, it is this exfoliation process happens because there is thermal expansion and contraction, and that is why flakes of rock. So if this is a rock, let's say this is a rock, small flakes will keep on weathering, and ultimately from every side small flakes will keep on weathering, and this will be a polished surface that will become into a pebble or a very big polished rock, right? So that is there, and this is common in the arid and semi-arid regions where there is lack of water. Fine, when there is lack of water and there is lot of temperature difference also. So exfoliation. Now, what is abrasion? Abrasion is, you know the word abrupt, right? So abrasion is a very sudden process wherein two rocks can collide and they can break. It's a very sudden process. Okay. Friction की वजह से break होते हैं, constant tension की वजह से break होते हैं. So that is there. So this is also a physical process. And oxidation. Oxidation is a chemical weathering process wherein whatever mineral the rock is made up of, oxygen is chemically added to it, and you know when any matter oxidizes, right, then it loses its form, right? So because of chemical addition of oxygen the rock will weather. That is oxidation. ठीक है, तो ये डिफरेंस क्लियर होना बहुत जरूरी है. एनसीईआरटी में या सुनने की बुक में, विच एवर सोर्स यू आर फॉलोइंग, प्लीज मेक श्योर that you revise the physical, the chemical, and the biological means of weathering. ठीक है, ये तीनों ही रिवाइज करने हैं, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड क्वेश्चंस आर फॉर्म्ड आउट ऑफ दिस. ओके, चलो नेक्स्ट पे चलो. Capillary effect, sometimes seen in news, is related to soil erosion, concept of chaos theory, sea level rise, or geothermal energy. Capillary effect, I hope you are aware of what exactly capillary effect is. It basically means that from the bottommost level, from the level of the ground or any other bottom level, whatever liquid is there, it will rise up. It will rise up. This is capillary effect. ठीक है, so for example, अगर आप let's say एक let's say water में आप पेपर स्ट्रॉ को अगर डुबाएंगे, पेपर स्ट्रॉ, so what will happen to that paper straw? Eventually only first only the bottommost part is submerged in water, but eventually the entire straw will suck that water automatically against the force of gravity. This is capillary effect. Now where is this relevant? See, when there are very harsh conditions, when there are very hot conditions, ठीक है, तो क्या होता है कि this is your ground and this is groundwater. Because of immense heat that is being generated and immense solar energy, evaporation is happening at a very strong rate. And because of that energy, the liquid, the water from inside is actually coming up. And along with that water, salts are also coming up. Salts are also coming up because salts can dissolve in water. Fine. Listen to this very carefully. Salts are coming up because salts can dissolve in water. And ultimately what happens now? There is this layer of salty water out of which water gets evaporated, but salt remains. And that entire soil becomes saline soil. Saline soil. ठीक है, सेलाइन सॉइल बन जाता है, एंड दैट इज व्हाट इज सॉइल इरोजन. सो कैपिलरी इफेक्ट इज एक्चुअली seen with respect to the soil erosion. In this is basically due to dry conditions, excessive evaporation, this happens, and this is your capillary effect. ठीक है. Then concept of chaos theory. Chaos theory is basically where there is no particular reason for anything to happen. There is no explanation for anything for happening. That is chaos theory. Capillary test is not related to that. Sea level rise, again, it is not related to that. Sea level rise का capillary effect से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. And geothermal energy. See, geothermal energy, you might think that, okay, this is the ground, and if we dig into it, then there is hot water that is coming out, and we are creating heat is coming out of the earth, so that is capillary effect. That is not capillary effect. That is a representation of pressure, right? The pressure inside the earth. This is not out of pressure. Capillary effect is not out of pressure. Okay, where is it? Yeah, capillary effect is because of the effect of the exterior evaporation, right? So this is not because of interior pressure, this is because of the exterior pull of evaporation. So here soil erosion is the correct answer. Soil erosion से भी सवाल आ चुके हैं, capillary effect से भी सवाल आ चुके हैं, right? So both these are important. Next, consider the following pairs, landform and characteristics. सिर्फ लैंडफॉर्म के नाम लेते हैं, मैं नाम लूंगी, एंड आई विल कीप टेलिंग यू कौन सा किस कैरेक्टरिस्टिक में आता है. स्पिट्स, कैमिस, डिपोजिशन एंड खदीन. सो यहाँ पे देखो, दिस क्वेश्चन हैज अ डिफरेंट इंटरप्रिटेशन देन यू माइट थिंक. सी, स्पिट क्या होता है? स्पिट इज नॉट अ इरोजनल लैंडफॉर्म. अगर आप स्पिट एक वर्ड को देखें तो व्हाट इज स्पिट? व्हेन समवन स्पिट मींस समवन जस्ट brings out their saliva, and that saliva deposits somewhere, right? So spit, when a river spits, it is basically depositing its water, ठीक है, in a coastal environment. So if, let's say, if this is the sea, है ना, जैसे बे ऑफ बंगाल है, अरेबियन सी है, जो भी है, river is coming here and river is draining out, ठीक है, into the sea. As it keeps on draining out, it will keep getting delta बनाएगी या नहीं बनाएगी, depend करता है. But there might be ऐसे just a spit kind of a thing coming out from the river, जहां पे river का पानी बस थोड़ा फैल जाता है, right? So it is a formation of riverine formation बोलते हैं इसको, and it is made a depositional format. It is not erosional, it is depositional. So ये तो incorrect हो गया. Then cames are actually glacial landforms, ठीक है, glacial landforms होते हैं cames. And glacial landforms में भी क्या होते हैं? Glacial depositional landforms. Depositional, ठीक है. Depositional landforms कैसे? Basically when glacial water is melting and it is coming down, so it is depositing certain sediments on the glacier also, downhill the glacier also, right? That is what is caves. ठीक है, तो फ्लूवियल नहीं है. फ्लूवियल का मतलब होता है रिवर से रिलेटेड. इट इज द ग्लेशियल डेपोजिशनल लैंडफॉर्म. तो ये सेकेंड भी गलत हो गया. नाउ डेपोजिशन, consequence of erosion, absolutely correct. If erosion is not happening, if this is a big rock, ठीक है, and if this is eroding slowly, some aspect, some parts of it are eroding, only then they will deposit, right? If there is no base rock, if there is no erosion of that rock, then how will deposition happen? There will be nothing to deposit, right? So here third is absolutely correctly matched, although you might have thought that erosion and deposition are the opposite, but no, one is the consequence of other. Deposition is the consequence of erosion. Then khadeen is basically a landform from arid regions, ठीक है, arid regions, and it is a lake. Khadeen is a lake which is found in arid regions. So for example, in Jaisalmer you will find, Jaisalmer is a proper desert, है ना, जयपुर वगैरह तो अब desert नहीं रहे, but Jaisalmer is a proper desert. You will find these khadeens, दीज आर प्लाया लेक्स, ठीक है। तो 3 करेक्टली मैच नहीं है, ओनली 1 इज करेक्टली मैच्ड हियर, सो आंसर विल बी ए, ओनली 1. And landforms are very important. We will not be able to cover all the landforms in this class, I'm telling you this, but I'm telling you to revise all the landforms from your source. ठीक है, चलो. Which of the following is not an example of secondary soil mineral? Not an example of secondary soil mineral. Quartz, limonite, gibbsite, geothite. अब देखो ऐसे क्वेश्चन में you might not be knowing what is a secondary soil mineral. You might not be knowing which one of this is secondary soil mineral. But do you know that the word secondary means second in importance, right? And out of these 4, what is that one word which you have heard more than the others? The question is asking you which one of the following is not an example of secondary soil minerals. ठीक है, and there is one word which you can clearly find you have heard that word more than the others, which is quartz. ठीक है, तो answer to this is quartz only. ठीक है, now I am not saying this is the best way to answer the question, but when UPSC exam makes you helpless, right, then it drops these kind of hints, and that is why it's important to actually, because no one knows what limonite is, gibbsite is, geothite is, no one knows it. But UPSC has given you a hint that 3 of them are secondary, 1 is primary. So please tell me what are the primary. Primary would be one that you have heard of more. ठीक है, तो अब primary में और क्या क्या आता है? इसका आंसर तो क्वार्ट्स है. क्वार्ट्स के अलावा there's also feldspar. Feldspar is there. Then mica is there. Mica you would have heard a lot. Then another very important is hornblende and actinolite. ये दोनों लगते हैं सेकेंडरी, बट ये दोनों प्राइमरी हैं. ठीक है, याद रखना. देन सेकेंडरी की बात करो, सेकेंडरी में देयर इज लिमोनाइट, गिब्साइट, जियोथाइट, ये तो बता ही दिया. देन देयर आर अदर क्ले मिनरल्स. ठीक है, क्ले रिलेटेड मिनरल्स जिनके नाम ऐसे ही है, काओलिनाइट. देन देयर इज मोंट मोरिलोनाइट. तो ये बहुत कम सुने हुए नाम है आपके, बट दीज आर जस्ट 2 नेम्स, हॉर्नब्लेंड एंड एक्टेलोटाइट. ये 2 हैं, दीज आर प्राइमरी सॉइल मिनरल्स, अदरवाइज ऑल ऑफ देम आर सेकेंडरी. और जो प्राइमरी है उनके नाम आपने सुने हुए हैं, क्वार्ट्ज, फेल्डस्पार, माइका, ऑल दीज आर प्राइमरी वंस. सो यू हैव टू बी स्मार्ट समटाइम्स, right? All the time actually you have to be smart to clear this particular paper, right? Chalo, match the following pairs: alluvial soil, chernozems, latosols and terra rossa soils. Now अब इसमें क्या है? Basically there are types of soils which are being asked. ठीक, तो अब soils में the only soil that most of you here would be knowing is alluvial soil. Alluvial soil is the soil which is deposited by the Ganga Yamuna, in the Ganga Yamuna plains, out of which the Ganga Yamuna plains are made, right? So alluvial soils, and you don't know what is calcimorphic, pedocalc, pedalfers, but you do know that alluvial soils do not have zonation in them, right? They are mixed soils. They are one layered soils, basically. They are azonal soils. So alluvial soils are actually azonal soils. They don't have proper zonation in them. So A will be with D. So with this, your 2 options are eliminated. But nevertheless, this is a difficult question. See, now I'll tell you what these soils are. Chernozems. Chernozem is basically a black colored soil, not black soil, black colored soil, which is found in dry conditions in high latitudes. ठीक है, and when we talk about the climatic regions, we'll talk about steppes, we'll talk about prairies, we'll talk about basically the land, the tropical rainforest, the steppes, etc. So we'll talk about this steppe grassland. ठीक है, स्टेपे ग्रासलैंड. तो स्टेपे ग्रासलैंड में चर्नोजेम्स जो है वो मिलते हैं. And because they are in dry conditions, I have told you they are also impacted by the capillary action. ठीक है, तो chernozems are also called pedocals. अभी इसको hold करना, इस पूरे doubt को hold करना, because when we will study the stepes, है ना, when we'll study the various climatic landforms, then we'll again come back to this कि कौन से region में कौन सा soil पाया जाता है, which region has which soil. So chernozems found in the steppes, they are black colored, they are found in arid regions and they are found in high latitudes. Basically steppes overall are found in high latitudes. Then latosols. Latosols, they are again found in high latitudes, and whichever soils you will find in high latitudes, they will not be very fertile as compared to the tropical latitudes. So high latitudes with alternate wet and dry conditions, and they are impacted by leaching. Like the chernozems are impacted by capillary action. Capillary action moves upwards. Fine. Leaching moves downwards. ठीक है, leaching moves downwards. The minerals that are accumulated on the top, they are leached down. So latosols are called pedalfers. ठीक है, pedalfers बोलते हैं. Chernozems को pedosols बोलते हैं, latosols को pedalfers बोलते हैं. Alluvial is azonal, and terra rosa. Terra rosa soil is basically calcimorphic soil. Terra rosa soil is basically localized soil होता है वो, because of limestone enrichment. And when you study about limestone, you would know that it is calcium rich. That mineral is calcium rich. ठीक है, limestone. So यहाँ पे calci is calcium, तो calcimorphic soil. तो ये definitely difficult question है. अगर इसके अलावा कुछ भी पूछा जाता है, apart from these should be clear to you. But apart from these, if anything is asked, you are supposed to leave this kind of a question if they're going into a lot of detail. Fine. But UPSC knows that people from all the streams, है ना, science, humanities, commerce, every stream people are giving this exam. So such detailed are not expected, detailed questions. But why we are making you practice this is because you should be able to deal with these kind of questions in front of you. है ना, कभी पूछ लिया जाए, अगर पूछा जाएगा, most of the people would be leaving it only. So it makes sense to leave it. Right? Okay. Consider the following statements. Kinetic energy is the potent force in the weathering process. Mosses and lichens are the active agents of weathering. Which of the given statements is or are correct? So weathering के बारे में हम जब भी पढ़ते हैं, प्लीज ये समझना कि it is an in situ process. So if there is this rock which is being weathered by animals, by wind, by, you know, it gets weathered something like this because of wind, because wind is acting this way, and here a plane is being formed from the weathered material. Deposition is happening. Fine. But this rock is not moving, right? This rock is not moving. So here kinetic energy is not making this rock move. The rock is staying at its own way. What makes kinetic energy move? For example, the transportation. If it is written transportation, so transportation is kinetic energy. It uses kinetic energy, right? But weathering does not use kinetic energy. It is not a result of kinetic energy also, right? It is a result of gravitation. It is a result of physical processes. It is a result of chemical processes. It is a result of biological processes, but not kinetic energy. It is not initiated by movement, right? So here first is incorrect, but second one, mosses and lichens are the active agents of weathering. This is absolutely correct. Okay, they keep on, they're biological agents of weathering basically. So they keep on, you know, feeding on the rock. They keep on thawing on the rock, and the rock keeps on weathering. So here 2 only is the correct answer. I hope that you will understand why. Next. Consider the following statements regarding the factors aiding mass movements. Removal of support from below by natural or artificial means, deforestation in hilly areas, tectonic activities, and El Nino effect in India. How many of the above statements is or are correct? So अब देखो कि mass movements के बारे में हम बात कर चुके हैं. Is weathering a prerequisite to it? No. But with weathering, will weathering help it? Will weathering aid it? Yes. So similarly, if this is a huge rock and it goes something like this, this kind of a rock, कई बार बन जाते हैं, right? And here there is a huge boulder. Because this is such a scary, extension of this rock, this is a huge boulder that we have artificially installed here, let's say. And then this boulder is removed from here. So what will happen? Under the influence of gravity, this particular landform might fall down. It might break here and it will fall down. So it will be a mass movement. But that will not be a prerequisite. Okay, that will not be a prerequisite for it. So here, removal of support will aid the mass movement for sure. Similarly, deforestation in hilly areas. If this is a hill, these are some trees, etc. If you cut these trees, the soil of the hills, which these trees are so tightly pulling, they're keeping the soil together. That soil will be loose, and because of that soil being loose, there is higher probability of mass movements. ठीक है, जैसे slump की बात की थी हमने. Then tectonic activities, of course, they will aid mass movements. But El Nino effect basically leads to lack of rainfall in India. Lack of rainfall in India. And how will lack of rainfall lead to mass movements? It will not lead to, or it will not even aid mass movement as such. In fact, the more rains that are there, the heavier the mass becomes, and there will be more pressure, and mass movement will more likely to be happen. But that is not the case with lack of rain, which happens under El Nino. We'll study about it in climatology. So here only 3 is the correct answer. El Nino is not impacting mass movements. Okay. Last question for the day. Most of the leached material accumulation takes place in which horizon of the soil? O horizon, B horizon, A horizon, or C horizon? So soil is an important topic of geography and for environment as well. तो अब जब भी जैसे हमने azonal soils पढ़ा, तो alluvial soils are azonal soils. They don't have zones, right? But soils mostly are divided into zones. तो top soil जो सबसे ज्यादा fertile होता है, जहां पे हम सारी खेती बाड़ी करते हैं, this is called the O layer. Then comes the A layer. Then comes the B layer. Then comes the C layer, and then comes the bedrock. ठीक है? So O layer is the most fertile one. A layer is having fine grains, fine particles. A layer is the one which is actually called the topsoil. A layer में सारा recently accumulated organic mass होता है. All the nutrients come from the A layer. So it's called the topsoil. Then B layer. B layer is actually called the subsoil. And this is where the minerals are leached. ठीक है? Most of the leached minerals come to B layer. ठीक है? तो this will have a little bigger rocks. ठीक? Then there is C layer. C layer is actually, and this B layer is also called the zone of accumulation because all the leached material comes here. Then C layer, it has big rocks. ठीक है? It has bigger rocks, and D layer is, of course, it has the parent rock from where all the soil is formed, right? So what is the zone wherein leached material gets accumulated? It's actually the B horizon. So soil, ये भी एक डायग्राम में दिया हुआ है आपकी एनसीईआरटी में. Soil as a topic is very important, so make sure that you have it on your tips. ठीक है? So yes, that is all for today. We have done 10 questions to study about geomorphic processes, geomorphological processes, how these are formed. We have talked a little about soil also. In the next class, we are going to talk about landforms. Okay. And to understand those landforms, you need to know these processes. For example, weathering, for example, mass movements. You need to know them very clearly because the application and the result of these processes is the landforms. Okay? So make sure that you study these geomorphic processes properly, especially weathering, 3 types of weathering. And then come to the next class. If you have the Sunya book, you can straight away read from there. If you have NCRT, you can read from class 11th Physical Geography NCRT of the world. Okay? So yes, thank you so much for attending this class. And if this class has benefited you or is benefiting you on a daily basis, do let us know in the comment section. That's the only way we can interact with you. And yes, I'll see you all in the next lecture. Bye-bye.